Master Coolidge, episode 31 to 35.
Zane felt exhilarated standing before the dean of the Fire Scorpion Academy. He knew she must have been an intermediate-level practitioner, as she could travel through the skies and hunt down people thousands of miles away. Back in Kintyre County, he would never have dreamed of reaching the intermediate level, but after seeing Madame Halloway, he felt like anything was possible. Before visiting the Dragon Prison, he had expected that he wouldn't get past the third stage of the Foundation level, but he had already surpassed that. No one else in Kintyre County had ever even advanced to the third stage. It was rare for those from the Yarrow Kingdom to become members of a powerful sect like the Five Spirits sect, and even fewer people reached the intermediate level, and those were usually military generals. Once the dust had settled, the test moderator called Zane's name. It was his turn to touch the monument. Zane snapped out of his daze and squeezed through the crowd until he reached the monument. All eyes were on him, and everyone wondered what the outcome would be, especially Prince Jorah, who was still watching him intently.
Put your hand on the monument and channel your body's vital energy.
The moderator instructed him.
If you get 3 stars or more, you may stay. If you get less than 3 stars, you will leave immediately.
Zane looked at the monument with trepidation, studying the symbols all over it. Just as his hand was about to make contact, one of the symbols jumped onto his arm like a little bug and vanished into his body. Shocked, he instinctively wanted to withdraw his hand, but then he realized that those symbols were what made the monument so special. Countless runes circulated throughout his body before finally ending up at his energy center. Immediately, his seat of vital energy, which had previously been weak, was activated. A surge of vital energy streamed from his body, absorbed by the monument that quaked violently. Then it swayed back and forth with a thunderous sound. The moderator's eyes grew wide as he watched, wondering if they had another 6-star talent among them.
He can't be, can he?
But the vibrations only lasted for a moment, and then everything returned to normal. No image was projected from the monument, and there was no sign of the misty weather and heavy rain that Eris had predicted would happen. Only 4 slightly dim and pitiful stars flashed a few times before immediately dissipating, leaving the moderator confused. Marking down Zane's score, he thought,
Never mind. The disturbance must have been left over from Elena's 6-star talent and high-grade spirit body. A 4-star talent, which is a pass. Next.
Zane should have been celebrating, but instead, he felt an indescribable sense of loss. He felt that he should have done better. Prince Jorah, on the other hand, was livid.
I can't believe he passed the talent test. I think he's likely to pass the next test too.
If he does, I'll take him out. I assure you, no matter where Zane ends up, it won't end well for him.
The selection criteria for the Five Spirits sect were extremely harsh. In the beginning, there had been approximately 3,000 competitors, but more than 2/3 of them had been eliminated in the first round. The second round halved that, leaving about 500. Zane accompanied Barnabas up the stairs to the next platform. Awaiting them was a huge square with hundreds of gray stone tables, each containing one of 5 tasks.
You must choose one of the 5 tasks.
The next test, moderator explained to Zane and the others who had just arrived.
Elixir refinement, weapon craft, rune decryption, formation mastery, or beast training. This test is more difficult than the previous ones. So I would advise you to choose wisely and pick the task you're most likely to succeed in.
100 or so people were already working on tasks, and most of them didn't notice the new people walking in. Meanwhile, others walked around, trying to decide which task to attempt. Barnabas's expression became grim as he watched people stress over the tasks.
You should choose whatever you're most familiar with, Zane. Even if you can't finish it, that doesn't mean you won't pass. After all, other than the major sects, few people in the world can master the skills behind these tasks.
Zane gave him a strange look, touched but slightly offended that his new friend was worried about his skills. But Barnabas didn't know that Zane had already mastered elixir refinement. Zane was overjoyed that the test was one he could handle, but he didn't say so. Instead, he reassured Barnabas.
Don't worry about me. I am not sure about the rest, but I have some confidence in elixir refinement.
As soon as he said it, someone behind him laughed.
Do you small-town folk really think you can measure up?
Wrong.
Penelope found herself at a loss to counter Zane's argument. Fuming silently, her face twisted into a fierce frown. She condensed energy in her palms and aimed it at Zane, but the moderator intervened just in time.
No fighting during testing, or you'll be disqualified.
He shouted, ignoring the fact that the energy in her palms would have been enough to kill Zane if she had released it.
If you two are going to cause trouble, then you can leave now.
Penelope took a deep breath and with great difficulty withdrew the energy in her hands. Then she glared at Zane, full of hatred for him.
I bet you're all talk. I bet I can easily beat you, and when you lose, you'll apologize for insulting my master.
Zane smiled, happy to take part in an elixir refinement competition. But Barnabas was worried, as he wasn't aware of Zane's skills.
Don't be reckless.
He warned, pulling Zane aside.
It doesn't matter if she teases you a bit. It's fine even if you lose against her. But if you choose the wrong task, you won't be able to get into the Five Spirits sect. That's what matters.
Zane patted his shoulder.
Don't worry. I wouldn't fight a battle I couldn't win. Trust me, I'm going to beat her.
Zane and Penelope made their way toward the elixir refinement section and chose a space of their own to work. Each of them decided to refine the elixirs they were most familiar with. Everyone around them began to speculate who would win the competition, and most were on Penelope's side. After all, she was the daughter of the Southern King, and she had been learning alchemy from a master since a very young age. Even if she wasn't officially an alchemist, by most people's standards, she wasn't too far off. Zane, on the other hand, was from a small place they had never even heard of. He seemed like an impulsive kid who was just trying to show off.
Shouldn't we stop them? This could get dangerous.
Nope.
The moderator replied, surprising everyone.
As long as they don't fight, it's fine. Besides, this is great entertainment. It gets boring supervising these tests all day.
Penelope got to work on her task, throwing her full attention into it. She had already picked out the required herbs prepared by the Five Spirits sect, and although she was a little flustered, she had a very strong drive to win the competition. She cleaned, ground, and crushed the herbs, and then she silently recalled the elixir refinement process. But for some reason, she began to feel nervous. Her breathing had become rapid and her chest was heaving, so she took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and told herself to calm down.
You've got this. That idiot is just a charlatan. He got into your head, but he probably couldn't even refine a single elixir if his life depended on it. All I need to do is apply my usual skills in refining the true essence pill. Even if I can't do it perfectly, I'm sure it's thousands of times better than what that stupid oaf can do.
Having finished giving herself a pep talk, she opened her eyes and started placing the ingredients in the cauldron to start the refining process. Meanwhile, Zane appeared extremely laid back and showed no signs of nerves. He even hummed while he worked, annoying Penelope even further. His eyes lit up with appreciation as he played around with the bronze cauldron on his table. It was the nicest cauldron he had ever seen.
This really is a prominent sect. Even the cauldrons used for testing are magnificent. Compared to this, my cauldron at home seems so drab.
For a moment, he wondered if he could get away with taking the cauldron home with him. But then he thought better of it. He added the blood essence grass, panax root, red clove, and heart fruit to a bowl. Then he stirred them together as he recalled every step of the process that the Dark Shadow had taught him to refine the marrow purifying pill. After preparing the ingredients, he used fire crystals to start the alchemy fire in his cauldron and set it to the correct temperature. Step by step, he added his ingredients and added the fire crystals. He had heard that people with advanced cultivations could control the intensity of the alchemy fire at will, but he still needed the crystals. A crackling sound came from the cauldron as some of the herbs began to melt. White smoke billowed from the cauldron, accompanied by a strange fragrance. And after some time, he added more ingredients and then carefully adjusted the intensity and temperature of the flame. The whole refining process went smoothly, and Zane didn't make a single error. Penelope's progress looked similar, but she missed the mark because she wasn't as familiar with what she was refining. She had either timed something wrong, or her heat control wasn't precise enough. But what seemed like insignificant mistakes could be disastrous to alchemists. Fortunately for everyone watching, the results weren't fatal. She waved her hand over the cauldron to make the pill condense. A faint medicinal fragrance wafted out from the cauldron, and a tiny spark shot out. Penelope thought the pill was complete, so she was overjoyed at her triumph.
Yes!
She took the small red spiritual pill from the cauldron and could immediately sense a little vital energy emanating from it. The test moderator looked over and smiled.
One top-grade true essence pill of great quality. Pass.
Penelope shot a look of pure spite at Zane, who was still busy working on his pill. She knew if he failed to condense a pill, victory would be hers. As she dreamed about gloating about her success, Zane started the condensation process. He carefully shaped the alchemy flame to resemble a thin layer of paper covering the entire cauldron. And then he began to condense the pill. As Zane reached for the cauldron's lid, an unexpected surge of blue light burst out and soared into the sky, dazzling like a star-studded galaxy. The moment Zane retrieved the completed marrow-purifying pill, an enigmatic aura surrounded it, captivating all those present in the square. The moderator stepped forward to inspect Zane's creation, and the onlookers were shocked to see his usual neutral demeanor shatter as his jaw dropped in disbelief. Everyone else was equally dumbfounded. Not only had Zane created a perfect pill, but he had made 9 of them. The moderator took a deep breath.
9 top-grade marrow-purifying pills. 3 with perfect quality and 6 with excellent quality. This is unheard of.
Excited chatter broke out among the other hopefuls. They all wondered how the young man from a small town had managed to make top-quality pills at his level of cultivation, and everyone wanted to get to know him a little better. Meanwhile, Zane was overwhelmed by the response. Penelope's face was ashen. Zane, the small-town nobody, had just delivered a knockout punch, refining a perfect quality marrow-purifying pill. Her confidence, once unshakable, had crumbled. Her expression was ugly as she stared at Zane. She gradually lowered her head, unable to look him in the eye.
How did he refine a perfect quality marrow purifying pill? It's impossible. To refine a pill like that, you have to be refining the same pill for at least 10 years non-stop. Clearly, he's about the same age as me.
Penelope was flustered, her words stuck in her throat. Zane, unfazed, held up a perfect marrow-purifying pill.
Was I wrong? Can you admit you're not as good as you thought? Your master is worse than the others.
How dare you!
Of course, the winner was right while the loser was wrong. Penelope had nothing to say this time, but she still was upset by it. Defeated, she stomped away, muttering under her breath. Barnabas, Zane's companion, was stunned.
Zane, don't tell me that you're also a famous master's disciple. Which great figure has taught you so well? Otherwise, how were you able to refine a perfect quality marrow-purifying pill that even an alchemist couldn't do?
Nah, I was just lucky.
Zane's success hadn't gone unnoticed. They all knew what it took to be an alchemist. He would be a very precious asset to any sect, so everyone noted his name. Even the Hall of Foreign Affairs secretary, a Foundation realm expert, approached him with a new friendly tone.
Your name's Zane, right? Not bad. I didn't expect you to actually have mastered the refinement of the marrow-purifying pill. To think you came from a minor clan. I'll report this matter to the higher-ups. Once you officially enter the Five Spirits sect, they definitely wouldn't allow a genius like you to be silenced.
Zane beamed, his heart swelling with pride. The secretary's words were music to his ears, however the other competitors grew envious. After Barnabas completed his beast training task, they continued to the final test. Standing before them was a massive stone gate, 100 yards wide, adorned with flashing runes. The surrounding was peaceful and quiet. Looking down, one could see a wide expanse of mountains, rivers, as well as a dense fog. 4 dazzling rays of light in azure, white, red, and blue had come alive around the test takers. One could see the 4 divine beasts baring their fangs and brandishing their claws from afar. The posture of the beast was slightly intimidating.
Is this the true entrance to the Five Spirits sect? I guess we'll be considered as being accepted into the sect once we go past this gate.
Beneath the gate, the 4th test awaited everyone. A towering rock held a rusty, ancient sword. This was the final test. Pull the sword from the rock. Many people came forward, one after another, trying to pull the damaged sword out of the rock. But none of them knew how the sword was made or how it was stuck in the rock. No matter how much strength they used on the sword, it wouldn't budge at all. It was as though some magical will was attached to the sword.
You don't have to pull it out. You've already passed the first 3 tests. However, this 4th test is meant only for those with exceptional talent. If you can pull the sword, it's a mark of true prowess.
Barnabas, desperate to prove himself, strained against the sword. The blood in his body slowly heated up, making his face flush. But no matter how hard he tried, Barnabas couldn't pull it out. It wouldn't budge.
No, that's incorrect. This sword is called a sealed sword because it's not just stuck in the rock. You need a specific understanding of the art of sword to even move it.
Zane's heart skipped a beat. Could this be it? The deeper secrets of the art of sword hidden within the heavenly swordfinger technique?
Why don't you try it? It doesn't matter if you fail. There are very few people in the entire Five Spirits sect who could pull out the sword.
Zane, a sliver of hope flickering within him, approached the sealed sword. The surrounding crowd didn't pay attention to him because there were already over 100 people who had unsuccessfully attempted to pull out the sword. The hilt of the sealed sword was only half the size of his palm. A silver light danced around the blade as he reached out. A strange vision pulsed in his mind, followed by a powerful sword will emanating from the weapon.
Turns out the sword was only being held back by sword will.
Zane knew he had to fight the sword's will with his own. He channeled the heavenly swordfinger technique's sword will against the sealed sword, the 2 forces clashing in an unseen battle. The 2 sword wills collided like 2 snakes fighting each other. They moved back and forth between Zane's arm and the hilt of the sealed sword, trying to overcome each other. A gentle gust of wind appeared out of thin air and spun around the rock.
Come out of the rock, now!
His sword will appeared to have swallowed that of the sealed sword. The sealed sword's will gradually became fragmented. A sound of metal rubbing against stone could be heard. With a mighty push, Zane overwhelmed the sealed sword's will, causing it to shudder and rise halfway out of the rock. The crowd fell silent, their eyes wide with disbelief. The invigilator, aghast, was speechless. His eyes widened and his mouth dropped open. Zane's feat with the sealed sword had stunned the Invigilator, leaving him speechless. The man, eager to know more about the young alchemist, pressed Zane for details.
Did you really pull it out? Half a yard? You actually pulled the sword half a yard up. May I ask, what is your name and where do you come from?
Zane was taken aback by the Invigilator's excitement, but he calmly answered his questions.
My name is Zane, and I'm from Kintyre County. As for the art of sword, I have some knowledge, but I wouldn't dare to say I've mastered it.
Junior Zane, don't worry. Since you moved the sealed sword, the Five Spirit Sect's Hall of the Holy Sword will treat you well.
The Hall of the Holy Sword. May I ask, what exactly is this?
You'll know once you're officially a member of the Five Spirit Sect.
Some time passed and about 200 people slowly gathered in front of the stone gate. They were left standing from the initial 3,000 test takers. They were all extraordinary talents. Vaniel, the Hall of Foreign Affairs secretary, made his way up the stairs. He looked at the crowd, his expression much warmer than it had been at the beginning of the test.
Everyone, you are now officially disciples of the Five Spirit Sect after passing the first 3 tests. Now, please follow me to Hall of Foreign Affairs. We'll be assigning each of you to one of our academies.
Vaniel walked past the crowd to lead the way. The 200 disciples followed closely behind him. After stepping through the stone gate, they were greeted by a long and wide staircase. On both sides of the staircase were terrifying, lifelike statues of demonic beasts. Near them were several large halls made of golden bricks and black tiles. Disciples dressed in uniforms of various colors were walking around the halls. Occasionally, they saw some Foundation Realm disciples floating across the sky. As they walked, Vaniel explained the structure of the sect.
The Five Spirit Sect is the largest sect in the entire Yarrow Kingdom. There are a total of 5 academies within it: the Azure Dragon Academy, the White Wolf Academy, the Fire Scorpion Academy, the Celestial Turtle Academy, and the Titan Academy. With the exception of the Titan Academy, each academy has inner and outer disciples. All outer disciples may be promoted into inner disciples if their cultivation reaches the first stage of the Foundation Realm before the age of 18. Besides the 5 academies, there are 7 more halls: the Hall of Foreign Affairs, the Hall of Elixirs, the Hall of Weaponry, the Hall of Runes, the Hall of Formations, the Hall of Spirit Cultivation, and the Hall of the Holy Sword. If you want to earn more than just your allowance, you must complete tasks offered by any of the 7 halls. Very few of you can enter the other halls right now. Most of you will be spending time in the Hall of Foreign Affairs. But I do know all of you are the best of the best from the outside world. I advise all of you not to offend the elders of the Five Spirit Sect, otherwise you'll have a hard time here.
It took them a quarter of an hour, and finally they reached the Hall of Foreign Affairs, a 4-story building buzzing with activity. A giant crystal ball stood in the center.
When I call out your name, please take a step forward and put your hand on the crystal ball. Based on what color the crystal ball changes into, I shall assign you to an academy accordingly.
Vaniel began calling out names, assigning each disciple to one of the 5 academies based on the color that the crystal ball morphed into. Zane's heart pounded when he heard his name.
Next, Zane.
As Zane touched the crystal ball, it glowed a bright azure.
Azure Dragon Academy.
In a short amount of time, over 200 people were assigned to the academies of the Five Spirit Sect and given a place to live in. Zane and Barnabas, both assigned to the Azure Dragon Academy, were ushered to their new lodgings, where everyone would be actually living in the same courtyard. However, Barnabas was disappointed.
Among the 4 academies, the Azure Dragon Academy is ranked last. The number 1 academy is the White Wolf Academy, followed by the Fire Scorpion Academy, the Celestial Turtle Academy, and finally, the Azure Dragon Academy. I heard the allowance and available resources of the Azure Dragon Academy are much less than those of the other academies.
Zane tried to console his friend, but Barnabas was deeply disappointed. The faces of those assigned to the Azure Dragon Academy reflected the Academy's lower status.
Please gather here tomorrow to collect your uniforms and identity tokens. We are done for the day.
The new disciples, eager to explore their new surroundings, wandered the halls, taking in the sights and sounds of the Five Spirit sect. Zane and Barnabas were exploring when they encountered a group of veteran disciples. One of the veteran disciples, a young man with a pronounced jaw and wide cheeks, approached Zane and Barnabas.
Which academy are you from?
Zane and Barnabas were about to answer when the veteran disciple placed a hand on his shoulder. He looked like he had known Barnabas from before.
What are you doing here? Did you manage to break through to the Foundation realm and become an inner disciple?
Barnabas was surprised. Zane's triumph at the sealed sword test had barely subsided when he encountered another challenge. This time, it wasn't a test, but a tradition, the protection fee. A young, cocky disciple swaggered up to Zane and Barnabas, a mischievous glint in his eye.
Can you tell? My name is Greg, and I'm from the Azure Dragon Academy too. What are your names? If there are any difficulties in the future, feel free to look for me. Every outer disciple of the Azure Dragon Academy knows me. Senior Greg.
Thank you, Senior Greg. I'm Barnabas from Meadow City, and this is Zane. We will be glad if you would please give us some pointers around the academy next time.
What are you talking about? It's natural for seniors to help out our juniors, but taking care of you all will be very exhausting. It's difficult for my own cultivation. So would you two newcomers help me in my cultivation as well?
Greg, a self-proclaimed senior to the newcomers, explained the protection fee, a tradition where new disciples were expected to pay a year's worth of allowance and resources to their senior.
Don't you know about the protection fee? If the Hall of Foreign Affairs Secretary didn't tell you, then I'll let you know what it is now. All new recruits of the Five Spirits sect have to provide their seniors with a year's worth of allowance and resources as a protection fee. Otherwise, no one will protect you here.
The other senior disciples covered their mouths to suppress their laughter and snickered, causing Barnabas to scowl slightly. Greg was laughing with them too, and he placed his hand on Barnabas's shoulder.
Haha. Two unlucky newcomers have met a ruthless person like Greg. Most people would demand half a year, but he's famous for 1 year.
That's right. Based on Greg's current cultivation levels, it's reasonable for him to demand a year's worth of allowance and resources. I believe it won't be long before he reaches the Foundation realm.
We don't need your protection.
All right, as your senior, I'll teach you how to survive in the Five Spirits sect today.
Greg rolled up his sleeves. His muscles squirmed. His blood was fired up, and the rest of his body was steaming. He took a step forward. He had an oppressive aura that made it difficult to breathe for people around him. The disciple next to him snickered at Zane.
Haha. Two unlucky newcomers have met a ruthless person like Greg, with his famous Iron Wall move, as well as the people behind his back. Even most seniors are no match for him.
Zane, unfazed by Greg's intimidating aura, placed a hand on a ring inside his pocket, ready to strike back if needed. Barnabas, however, was terrified.
Senior Greg, we also need resources to cultivate ourselves. Besides, we haven't been assigned to a position yet. We don't even know how much we'll be earning.
Greg glanced at Zane coldly. However, his body gradually cooled down. Impressed by Barnabas's humility, Greg relented.
Fine, but you must come to my place tomorrow morning and give me an answer. Otherwise, once you get a position, you'll be done for.
Greg tossed a badge with his residence address at Barnabas's face and swaggered away, leaving the two newcomers in a tense silence. Zane was furious.
If we yield to him this time, he'll only get worse. Besides, if we work together, we can beat him.
We just started reporting to the sect. It's better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Perhaps tomorrow Greg would change his mind. After all, we're newcomers. The Azure Dragon Academy won't do anything to us.
Zane, unable to shake the anger from his heart, went straight to his new lodgings. The Five Spirits sect was situated on the jagged terrain of Burial Mountain. Amongst the seemingly endless mountain ranges stood many towering peaks. The residence of the outer disciples of the Azure Dragon Academy was located at a peak called the Sword Peak. The Sword Peak resembled the straight and sharp edge of a sword. It was surrounded by tall trees all year round. The courtyard was simple, with 3 small rooms and a glittering golden tree in the center. As Zane entered, a chubby boy emerged from one of the rooms.
Are you the 2 new disciples of the Azure Dragon Academy?
Barnabas hurried over and bowed to him, but the boy smiled and waved his hand.
I'm not a senior. I'm also a newcomer. My name is Wade. From now on, the 3 of us will be neighbors.
Zane and Barnabas were pleasantly surprised to meet another newcomer.
If there's anything, you must let me know too.
Zane, relieved by the kindness of Wade, felt a glimmer of hope. The 3 disciples chatted for a while before returning to their rooms. Zane settled into his room. Was located at a peak called the Sword Peak. The Sword Peak resembled the straight and sharp edge of a sword. It was surrounded by tall trees all year round. The courtyard was simple, with 3 small rooms and a glittering golden tree in the center. As Zane entered, a chubby boy emerged from one of the rooms.
Are you the 2 new disciples of the Azure Dragon Academy?
Barnabas hurried over and bowed to him, but the boy smiled and waved his hand.
I'm not a senior. I'm also a newcomer. My name is Wade. From now on, the 3 of us will be neighbors.
Zane and Barnabas were pleasantly surprised to meet another newcomer.
If there's anything, you must let me know too.
Zane, relieved by the kindness of Wade, felt a glimmer of hope. The 3 disciples chatted for a while before returning to their rooms. Zane settled into his room.